He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. It is so nice to have you with us tonight. We got a lot that we're going to be chatting about this evening, so buckle up and get ready for, well, let's start with this one. Chuck Schumer, the man in charge of the Democratic Party, the de facto face of the Democratic Party, the same guy that was in charge of the government shutdown to try to save his job, to show the extreme wing of his party, hey, I really am an extremist, showing it yet again. He is now calling the SAVE Act. What is the SAVE Act? It's very simple. It requires an ID to vote in federal elections. He is now saying it is Jim Crow 2.0. He went on MS Now, and the Senate Minority Leader said that the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act is 2.0 Jim Crow. The co-host said, so Leader Schumer, this talk about election security has revived discussions of the SAVE Act, which you have said you oppose. Proponents of it say that it's, to have ID, you have to prove U.S. citizenship to be able to vote. Some of the claims they make, to be clear, are overstated. We know there's not widespread election fraud, but polling does suggest there's a new Pew Research poll that 95% of Republicans, 71% of Democrats like the idea. Well, you know what? Let me just let you hear a little more of this conversation, and I want you to hear how, and when you're listening to this, I want you to think about one thing. How racist is it to imply that people that are black or Hispanic or of any minority live in a world where showing an ID is some sort of ridiculous idea? I want you to think about how racist it is to imply in 2026 that minorities, right? Not white people, just minorities, you could not expect them to actually have an ID. Can you really just think about what I said? Think about what I just said. They are now in 2026 saying, no, you can't expect a black person or a Hispanic person to have an ID. That's the Democratic Party's line. That is literally the definition of racism 101. It doesn't get any more racist than that. That is racism. And then they say, well, it's Jim Crow to ask or expect a minority person to have an ID. Now, again, if you're African American, I would be incredibly offended by this, that they are saying that you're so backwoods, that you're so beneath the rest of society, that we could not expect you as a black person or a Hispanic person to live in a world where an ID is actually part of like functioning as an adult. What's also interesting about the hypocrisy here is point number 2, before I play Chuck. And that's this. And this part actually makes me even more angry. You know what Democrats are always obsessed with? They are always obsessed with gun control. We've talked about that a lot on this show. And what do Democrats say? They want to get rid of every loophole, right? That's their obsession. I mean, how many times have they said over and over again that their true and genuine obsession is background checks, universal background checks. We must have background checks. I mean, over and over again. Well, how do you get a background check? How do you get a background check? You have to show an ID. Democrats are in favor. Let's be very clear. Democrats are in favor of an ID when buying a firearm. But they're not in favor of you showing an ID when you vote in an election. So you need to ask yourself this question. Why? Why would Democrats not want you to show an ID when you're voting? The only answer that I can come up with is because they want there to be the ability to cheat in that election. You want to know what else is also interesting? Just a point for you to think about for just a second here. In the states that Kamala Harris won, do you know one of the things they overwhelmingly had in common? The states that she won, no voter ID law. You don't have to have an ID to vote. I'm going to say that again. Go look at the electoral map and look at the states where Kamala Harris won. And then look at them up and see if they require an ID to vote. Go look at that data. You want to know why Democrats don't want voter ID? Because the only states that they win consistently are places where you don't have to show an ID. That's the reality of this situation. Now, I want you to hear the racist Chuck Schumer talking down to every minority in America and saying that he's somehow defending them, right? Like, oh, he's straight up defending them and saying they deserve the right to vote without an ID because we can't expect a person with an ID or a black person or a Hispanic person to have an ID. So therefore, you can't expect them to actually vote. That is now where we are with the Democratic Party. That is how racist they are. And they actually invoke racism and Jim Crow laws to make their point.
And the Constitution. And we are in the courts fighting them every step of the way. We are also having oversight hearings and investigations as to what is happening here. Mark Warner yesterday did a great job questioning what the hell is Tulsi Gabbard doing here. She's the head of DNI. She's for international intelligence, nothing to do with local. They're trying to intimidate local elected officials. And another thing we are doing is working with the local elected officials, how to avoid this intimidation, how to do their jobs. You know, we have millions, or I guess hundreds of thousands of local elected officials who are very proud. They go to the polling place and make the wheels of democracy work every election. We're not going to let them be intimidated. We're going to stand right by them.
So, Leader Schumer, this talk about election security has revived discussions of the SAVE Act, which you have said you oppose. Proponents of it say that it's, to have ID, you have to prove U.S. citizenship to be able to vote. Though some of the claims they make, to be clear, are overstated. We know there's not widespread election fraud. But polling does suggest, there's a new Pew Research poll, that 95% of Republicans, but also 71% of Democrats like this idea. So why do you not?
It's Jim Crow 2.0. And I called it Jim Crow 2.0, and the right wing went nuts all over the internet. That's because they know it's true. What they're trying to do here is the same thing that was done in the South for decades to prevent people of color from voting. For instance, if you change, you're a woman who got married and changed your last name, you won't be able to show ID and you'll be discriminated against. If you can't find a birth certificate or a proper ID, you'll be discriminated against. This is vicious and nasty. And I said to our Republican colleagues, it will not pass the Senate. You will not get a single Democratic vote in the Senate. We're not reviving Jim Crow all over the country. And when the American people hear what exactly it is doing and what its intent is doing, they're going to be against it as well.
By the way, when they say what their intent is, what is the intent? The intent is to have a free and fair election, right? Isn't that the intent here? And that's the reason why the majority of Americans are in favor of having to show an ID to vote, because you don't want your vote being canceled out by somebody else. CNN's own polling is showing this. In fact, I want to play this for you. I put this up on social media. You can see it. I've got it up on X, Ben Ferguson Show. On Instagram, follow me there, Ben Ferguson Podcast. And on Facebook, put in Ben Ferguson. I got the video up there so you can share it. But listen to, again, this is the basic polling data on showing an ID to vote in America.
Take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that, in fact, you should have a photo ID to be able to vote.
So something of a non.
I mean, this is like overwhelming. 85% white, 82% Latino, 76% black favor photo ID to vote. So almost 8 out of 10 African Americans say they want to have an ID to vote, because if you're going to go take the time to vote, you don't want your vote to be canceled out by someone who's not supposed to vote in the election. Someone that's stealing someone else's vote, for example. That is something that you don't want to happen. And that is exactly why this is a non-political issue. So I go back to Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, why are you so against counting only votes of people that are who they say they are in election? I'll go back to Chuck Schumer and ask another question. Chuck, do you believe to buy a gun you should have to show an ID? Yes, of course I do. Then why the hell wouldn't you show an ID to vote? That's the question I want to ask Chuck Schumer. Does he get asked that question? Well, listen to the first question after his statement there on MS Now, as they call it.
We'll debate that later, certainly about voter ID. But right now, I want to stick with the issue at hand, and that has to do with ICE.
That's it. That's Joe Scarborough for you. We'll debate voter ID later. Why didn't he ask one follow-up question to Chuck Schumer after the egregious statement that he just made, implying that every person that's a minority is too stupid to have an ID, too incompetent to have an ID, too backwoods to have an ID? We'll debate that later. So let's move on to ICE, right? Let's get everybody to hate on ICE. That's the follow-up question? That's the best you've got? You can't even, and the reason why they moved on so quickly is because they've seen the polling data that I've seen. That almost 8 out of 10 African Americans say, I want to have to show an ID to vote. More than 8 out of 10 Latinos say the same thing. More than 8 out of 10 whites say the same thing. There is universal agreement on this, that this is not a partisan issue. It isn't a political issue. It is if you don't have a free and fair election, then you don't have a free country. That is not hard to understand. And that's why so many Americans look at this and they say, it makes sense. That's why so many Americans say, yeah, I'm in favor of having to show my ID. To do everything, you show an ID. To get government aid, you show an ID. To get on an airplane, you show an ID. To go into many government buildings, you show an ID. Hell, I had to go to the Democratic Convention to cover it once. You ready for this? I had to show an ID to go to the Democratic National Convention. You couldn't even go to the Democrats' convention without showing an ID. To then get your credential to then allow you to go in so they could verify that you were who you said that you were. Think about that. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. And if you just joined us, we're talking about election integrity, the SAVE Act. And I do want to get some of your phone calls in here. 1-877-381-3811. Are you in favor of a voter ID to actually vote in an election? 1-877-381-3811. By the way, if you're against it, I beg of you, please call me. I genuinely want to hear why. Like, I mean it when I say it. I beg you. Please call me. 877-381-3811. Let me go back to a point I made a moment ago with Kamala Harris as well. Harris won 19 states plus D.C. in 2024. The U.S. has 36 states with some form of voter ID law. The rest verify identity via other means, quote unquote. Now, Harris, the majority overwhelming of states that she won do not require ID to vote. Some of them did, but the overwhelming majority did not. Now, if you look at our peers, if you look at other countries that are at a level that we're at, this is not even up for debate. It's not even a conversation, y'all. It's just a no-brainer, right? Like I mean it when I say it. It's like a non-issue. You show an ID to vote. The only reason why you would be against voter ID is because you want to exploit the system to cheat. That's it. You as a Democratic Party have figured out how to cheat. That's what it really seems to be about. And it's really sad, okay? But it's not shocking. It's not that surprising. It's just become the reality. 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Let me also just read for you what Donald Trump had to say on this, because I also think this is a really good point, is that Trump is all in on this because he understands he has the country behind him. That's important. Quote, America's elections are rigged, stolen, and a laughingstock all over the world. We are either going to fix them or we won't have a country any longer. This is much the same logic that if you don't have a border, then you're not a country, right? You're no longer a country. You're no longer a nation if you don't have a border. I am asking all Republicans to fight for the following. The Save America Act, saying this: all voters must show voter ID, identification. Number 2, all voters must show proof of United States citizenship to register to vote. Number 3, no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. What a great novel idea. Show up on Election Day? By the way, I think national election should be a holiday. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the research arm of conservative media. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Ben Ferguson Show. It is nice to, Mark Levin Show. See, this is what happens when you do your own show. You say it wrong. Don't make fun of me, Mr. Producer. Do not make, he's laughing at me. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I was going for perfect tonight, all right? I messed up once. It's the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for a great one. Good to have you with us. All right, let's talk more about this obvious moment in American history. Americans want voter ID. That's what they want. It's not controversial. It is not crazy. But even CNN talking about this to Democrat Representative Raskin on voter ID. Here is, in the Democratic Party, I mean, they're all in on this. Listen.
Congressman, of course, the president's allies say that this is all about the SAVE Act, which would require voter ID, although a fairly stringent form of it. Voter ID is supported by the majority of Americans, but there are Democrats on the Hill. You voted against this. Why not support voter ID?
Well, look, first of all, this is not a problem that people are identifying or recognizing in the states. The states and local governments are perfectly capable of identifying when there are problems. This is obviously being cooked up by Donald Trump to justify his persistent and utterly bogus claim that he won the 2020 election when Biden beat him by more than 7 million votes. But what's wrong with the SAVE Act? What's wrong with it is that it might violate the 19th Amendment, which gives women the right to vote, because you've got to show that all of your different IDs match. So if you're a woman who's gotten married and you've changed your name to your husband's name, but so now your current name is different from your name at birth, now you've got to go ahead and document that. You need an affidavit explaining why. And why would we go to all of these the troubles in order to keep people from voting when none of the states that are actually running the elections are telling us that there's any problem.
I love how he's like, there's no problem. So you're just going to say the American people, here's our middle finger, right? I mean, that's what you're saying. You go back to Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's, again, his own words. I don't care about the American people, what they think. We want to cheat.
There's a new Pew Research poll that 95% of Republicans, but also 71% of Democrats like this idea. So why do you not?
It's Jim Crow 2.0. And I called it Jim Crow 2.0, and the right wing went nuts all over the internet. That's because they know it's true. What they're trying to do here is the same thing that was done in the South for decades to prevent people of color from voting.
It's incredible. Anytime that you get backed in the corner, you just scream racist, right? Racism. Just straight up racism. Just, yeah, everybody's racist. Everything's racist. It's racist to show an ID. You can't expect a minority, a black person, to have an ID. That is the definition of racism. Right? That is. And then if you think that's not enough, they're also going on this one now. Senator Mark Warner says he's now afraid of ICE and voter suppression now. Listen.
We are all greatly afraid with these roving ICE vans that we see in Minneapolis and other cities. Could those ICE roving vans be used to try to go and intimidate voters at the polling station? These are all things that, sounded maybe way out or draconian a year ago or a year and a half ago, but they are at our front door right now.
I've heard no one say they're worried about ICE agents showing up at polling places. And by the way, if you're an American citizen voting, why would you be worried about ICE showing up? You wouldn't be worried about ICE showing up. You would only be worried on election day if ICE shows up to a polling place if you're an illegal immigrant, I'm assuming trying to vote in a federal election illegally. Like that's the only reason why you would be afraid on election day at a polling place of an ICE agent. If I saw, I've never in my life been afraid of an ICE agent. You want to know why? Because I'm an American citizen. I know I belong here. I'm not breaking the law. By the way, if I was trying to vote in a foreign country on election day and their equivalent of ICE was around, I'd probably be afraid. I'd probably be pretty scared. But I'm not going to be afraid of ICE agents. It's the same reason why I'm not afraid of police officers. Right? If I'm not breaking the law or doing anything wrong, I don't have to worry. It's really fun. If I get pulled over and I'm speeding, by the way, I'm actually not worried. You want to know why? Because I know how to interact with police officers. I know how to show them respect. I know how to make sure that I de-escalate the situation. I know how to make sure that I do nothing that makes them feel threatened. I've never seen a police officer in my life, and just because they wear a badge or because they're a police officer, have I been afraid the way that Democrats talk about ICE agents and law enforcement in general. And this, well, we're real concerned that ICE agents are going to be intimidating people at the voting booth. The only way that an ICE agent is intimidating to you is if you are breaking the law. And if you are breaking the law or you're in this country illegally, right, then I hope that ICE agents make you very uncomfortable. Extremely uncomfortable. That's all I ask for is law and order. And again, this isn't even a political statement. I cannot tell you the last time that we saw polling data the way that CNN described it that is so this overwhelming. I don't know the last time that I saw polling data that was this bipartisan. And the reason why this polling data shows this type of bipartisanship is actually for one reason. Because it doesn't seem like a political issue at all. Like, it doesn't seem like a political issue in any way. to the majority of Americans who were polled. Should my vote be counted correctly? Yes. Should I make sure that my vote isn't taken away from someone else, or my vote is taken away by someone else who votes legally? Yes. Almost 90% of Americans support requiring a photo ID to vote. So why do Democrats in Congress oppose voter ID laws? It's only because they want to cheat. Convince me otherwise. It is not racist to ask someone to show an ID. It is racist to imply that only minorities are the ones walking around that don't have voter IDs to be able to vote. That is racist. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. I want to get to some of your phone calls. Let me go to line 5 in Florida. Glenn, welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing
Mr.
well.
Ferguson, first and foremost, I just want to thank you for, bringing out the truth. Very few people these days speak the truth, and I appreciate everything that you do. Mark Levin does, and all my brothers and sisters that are good politicians. But listen, I wholly agree with you that it's a common sense issue, and I think that the thing that frustrates me the most is the deceitfulness of all the left-wing activists, lunatic fringe people. I'm a Christian, and I was taught that Satan is the father of all lies, and I think the Democrats are taking his lead. I think they have nothing but power.
Well, here's my thing, Glenn. If for the Republicans have gotten kind of squishy on this, like where they're not fighting for this, like what is wrong with you? This is a slam dunk issue. This is not a hard one, right? Like Democrats are in favor of ID to get a gun. Why would you not be in favor on this one? Like, I mean, really, why would you not say yes to this one? The SAVE Act is important to protect every American. Mike Johnson saying it this way, the Speaker of the House and every other Republican better get on board. Listen to Mike.
We are going to be fighting for the SAVE Act, and I'll tell you why this is so important. We've passed it twice in the House, and we will pass it again. The SAVE Act just simply says you have to have verification of citizenship to register to vote. That's about a 90-10 issue on many of the polls in this country, and we're going to enhance it by what the president calls the Save America Act. And so it would be proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID, which is also about an 80 or 90% issue on the polling nationwide, depending on who you talk to. These are very important things to ensure that our elections are free and fair and safe. And that's a critical component of maintaining a constitutional republic. So
he's right, by the way. It is a very critical point of keeping a nation together. Without it, what are we, right? It's a critical component of maintaining a constitutional republic. And if you don't have it, then we're all screwed. If we don't have free and fair elections, what are we doing here? It's no different than if you don't have borders, you don't have a country. Let's go to line 2. Mike, welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hi.
Hey, evening, Ben. I sure enjoy when you fill in for Mark.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Being from downstate Illinois, I support, a photo ID for voting. I mean, Illinois is basically controlled by 1 to 2 counties. The other 98 just have to lump it.
Did I lose you there? No, I got you back. Go ahead with your point. I lost you there for a second, but go ahead with your point. All right, I think we got a bad connection. We'll try to get you back, man. I'm really sorry about that. Let me go to Dale in Iowa. Welcome, line 6. You are on the Mark Levin Show. Hi.
Thanks a lot. We wouldn't even have to deal with this if the Trojan horse of immigration hadn't been unleashed with 20 to 30 million people.
Amen.
Listening to what you had, I'm wondering, are married women going to have problems when it comes time to get their Social Security or to get loans? I haven't seen that as a problem. And I just went to the bank the other day with a small deposit. I had $25 in cash, and because I had cash, they wouldn't let me deposit it unless they saw my ID. Now, and I'm for the idea of ID. I don't think it's a racist thing, but but I have had some people talk to me. My wife had her purse stolen. It took a long time. It was an arduous task just to get her birth certificate. But the bigger one is, I think about 15 million disabled people vote. Of that 15 million, I think about 1.2 million or so might have a little more onerous task trying to get their ID verified through a birth certificate. And I think we need to have some accommodation. We pay so much for all the illegal services, I think we could very easily provide services to help that fraction of the disabled if they truly have a difficulty here. And that's my one.
Well, and you go back to what the president said in his message that he put out, right? Like if you look at what he said, and I'll go back to it. He said, no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. That's just sanity, right? That's just pure sanity. That makes sense. And most people, I think, are like, yeah, that makes sense. That's not crazy. That's something we can all kind of agree on.
And the person who mentioned 7 million votes difference, it only took a few 100,000 to make the difference on the Electoral College. So that 7 million isn't the figure to look at. And when you got a handful of states, maybe just 5, that can corrupt the whole balance, and they will not provide data. They won't even turn loose the ballots. They don't agree with ICE enforcement. And there's all kinds of things, drug type of things, where these states are absolutely outlaws, and you can't get the data, even for Medicaid details.
Yeah. Great point, and I appreciate the phone call. Thank you, sir. It's good to talk to you. 1-877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. Don't forget, you can send me notes during the show if you can't get through on the line. I'd love for you to follow me on Instagram if you're there, Ben Ferguson Podcast. It's at Ben Ferguson Podcast. Follow me during the break there. Also on Facebook, Ben Ferguson, and on X, Ben Ferguson Show. You can follow me on X there as well. And grab my podcast, the Ben Ferguson Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. I love you listen to that every day as well. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, and I do want to get your phone calls. The number, it is so easy. You ready? 877-381-3811. If you just joined us, we are chatting right now about voter ID laws in America, and this should not be that controversial. In fact, it's not, if you look at the data. So why are Democrats blocking it? And where are the Republicans on this? I want to give you another example of this issue with voter ID laws, and I want you to hear what was said, and this is coming from the White House.
Follow up on that. He said specifically that they should take over elections in 15 states. Can you tell us what he meant by that, what 15 states he's referring to in terms of Republicans taking over elections?
Again, what I was just telling you is that with the passage of the SAVE Act, voter ID will be implemented across all 50 states. The president was referring to specific states in which we have seen a high degree of fraud. If you look at states like California, or if you look at New York City, for example, non-citizens are allowed to vote in elections in places like California and New York City. That just creates a system, an electoral system, that is absolutely ripe with fraud. And you cannot deny the fact that, unfortunately, there are millions of people who have questions about that, as does the president. He wants to make it right, and the SAVE Act is a solution to doing it. Daniel?
I love how they try to freak out, and they're like, well, what about the president? She's like, he's saying he wants there to be voter ID in every state. Like, this is not hard. Like, this is pretty easy, right? With the passage of the SAVE Act, voter ID will be implemented across all 50 states. That is uniformity. That's what it is. Why would we not want this? I think American voters, by the way, are angry. I think they're frustrated over this. I think this is where they're really frustrated that something this simple. And let me give a warning, by the way, to Republicans. You better get your act together on this, okay? Like, you better pay attention and get your act together on this. Because we're watching. I'm talking about Republicans. We are watching. John Thune saying this about it earlier today on Fox.
We haven't seen what that is yet.
Fair to say you sound frustrated. This is more. This is coming from Chuck Schumer and Senator Chris Murphy on the SAVE Act. Leader Thune, I'll get your response to this.
We've got to get this done, and we've got to get it done very quickly. The SAVE Act is an abomination. It's Jim Crow 2.0 across the country. We are going to do everything we can to stop it.
The SAVE Act in and of itself is a terrible piece of legislation. I do think the president is going to put the screws to John Thune and his allies in the Senate because his options to steal the election are going to continue to narrow.
So to the man in the center of all of this, your reaction to what you just heard there.
I'm going to hit pause. I'm going to play that for you coming up, all right? Don't forget, you can grab my podcast, the Ben Ferguson Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hour 2, it is nice to have you with us. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. And we've got a lot to talk about, including the President of the United States of America understanding that prescription drug prices have gotten way too high. President Trump loves putting his name on things. And Trump RX is a government-operated prescription drug platform that is launched under President Donald Trump in his second term. It's designed to help Americans access, as he described it, discounted prescription medications and make drug price information more transparent. The official website is trumprx.gov. Now, it does not sell drugs directly. Instead, it links users to manufacturers, direct-to-consumer purchase sites, or discounted pricing partners. The site was announced back in September. And now, the President of the United States of America at the White House announcing exactly how this is going to work. And I want you to listen to the President in his own words.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This is a big deal. This is a very big deal. People are going to save a lot of money and be healthy. So we're here this evening to celebrate the launch of one of the most transformative healthcare initiatives of all time. There's never been anything like it. Starting tonight, dozens of the most commonly used prescription drugs will be available at dramatic discounts for all consumers throughout a new website. It's called trumprx.gov. That's trumprx.gov. For years, politicians from both parties have promised to bring down prescription drug prices and make healthcare more affordable, but they all failed. It was all words as usual. They failed, and they failed badly. They tried doing this, some of them, most of them didn't even try, because they never really had a shot at it. But I'm actually getting it done, and it is done, actually. This launch represents the largest reduction in prescription drug prices in history by many, many times, and it's not even close. You're going to see numbers that you're not going to believe. Americans have long been paying the highest drug prices anywhere in the world, while other countries often paid pennies on the dollar for the exact same drugs. We were essentially subsidizing the entire world, and subsidizing by hundreds of billions of dollars every year. The United States is just 4% of the world's population and consumes only 13% of all prescription drugs, yet pharmaceutical companies have been making 75% from these drugs. Think of it, 75% of the money they made came from the United States, with a smaller population than what we will call the world. The American people were effectively subsidizing the cost of drugs for the entire world, and it's not going to happen any longer. We ended it. Everybody knew it was unfair for 30 years, but nobody did anything about it. Under the most favored nation agreements my administration has negotiated, the United States will pay the lowest price paid by any other country. So we're taking the lowest price paid for drugs. We will pay equal to whatever the lowest price anywhere in the world. That's the price that you're going to be paying. It's a tremendous reduction. Drug prices in other nations will go up by doing this. They had to agree, and the reason they agreed is I used tariffs. I said, if you don't put them up, then we're going to put tariffs on your nation, which will be more expensive to you. So in many cases, the drug costs will go up by double and even triple for them, but they're going way down for the United States, come all the way down by a difference of as much as 300, 400, 500, even 600%, even more than that in some cases. For example, you will see dramatic reductions in the cost of popular weight loss drugs known as GLP-1s. GLP-1s. Novo Nordisk will be slashing the price, as an example, of Ozempic from more than $1,000 to $199. And the price of Wegovy from more than $1,300 to $199. Nobody can even believe it. A 578% difference. Eli Lilly, who's been very helpful to us in getting this done, will be cutting the cost of its common insulin, drug, and medication from $200 to $25. Nobody can believe it. $200 to $25. AstraZeneca is slashing the price of a common inhaler from $458 to $51, a difference of nearly 800%. And we're also delivering historic discounts for couples struggling with infertility, as EMD Serrano will dramatically cut the cost of its most common IVF drugs. For example, a single dose of the most common IVF drug in the country, Gonal F, will plummet from the highest price in the developed world that we paid. The United States was subsidizing everybody. We paid the highest to the lowest price in the world, which will be demonstrating very shortly. We have some very talented people coming up and showing you how it's going to work and how the website works. All of these discounts and more will be available directly to consumers starting today at trumprx.gov. In just a moment, we will demonstrate how you can go to the website, get a coupon, and pick up your heavily discounted prescription drugs, highest level drugs, the highest level company, finest in the world, biggest in the world, most powerful drug companies in the world. And we had to go through them, and then we had to get all of these countries worldwide to lower their prices, and for us, help us lower our price. And what they did is, again, their prices went up by double, triple, and even sometimes 4 and 5 times. But the dozens of commonly used drugs available today are just the beginning. 16 of the 17 largest pharmaceutical companies have signed agreements, and the other one is coming. Believe me, they're coming, committing that going forward, all new medicines they bring to the market in the United States will be available at most favored nation prices. For those that don't know, that means in the entire world, most favored, we get the most favored, the lowest price. So if somebody gets a great price, that's great for us because we get it. So this is the exact opposite of what's been happening for the last 30 plus years. This policy, which is a key pillar of the great health care plan, is going to bring copays plummeting down and save Americans billions and billions of dollars, making health care much more affordable, like at a level that you couldn't believe. In my first administration, I kept drugs pretty even. I thought I was doing a great job, but this is really the great job. There's never been anything like it. Nobody thought it was possible to get it done. It's the biggest thing to happen in healthcare, I think, in many, many decades. Under these agreements, the top pharmaceutical companies will also be investing hundreds of billions of dollars to bring drug manufacturing back to America. It's already happening. They're building plants all over the country. Eli Lilly is building 6 plants with billions and billions of dollars each, which means jobs, economic growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. And it's really a big factor was the tariffs. We're charging very substantial tariffs for companies that don't want to make their drugs or pharmaceuticals and automobiles and other things. If they don't want to make them in the United States, they have to pay very big penalties in the form of tariffs. And what that means is they're all coming here. Every industry is coming here. We're taking in more than $18 trillion into the United States because of tariffs. The companies, the only way they can avoid them is to build here. They avoid paying the tariff. Now, they've been doing that, countries, to us for 30 years. That's how we lost so much business. They were drying up our country. We were losing factories. We were losing jobs like nobody's ever seen for many, many years. And now it's all been reversed, and we've never had a period. This is the wealthiest our country has ever been. We have hundreds of billions of dollars a year pouring in, and we're taking advantage of it. I want to give a special thanks to Airbnb co-founder and now, much more importantly, the Chief Design Officer of the United States, Joe Gebbia, and the entire team at the National Design Studio. They're unbelievably talented people. This group of geniuses could be doing anything right now. They could have been making a big fortune out there, but they decided they want to be with the government and do exactly what you're going to see tonight, and also some other things having to do with our country. And I want to thank Joe. With their help, our American by Design initiative will fully transform our most dated federal systems and services, providing Americans the richest, most beautiful, and most user-friendly government experience in the entire world. We have the greatest designers in the entire world, and they're with our country. They love our country. That's why they're doing it. So now I'd like to invite Administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, an incredible guy, a really brilliant man, Dr. Mehmet Oz, to show us how this beautiful new website works. And Dr. Oz, come on, and let's see what you can tell us. Thank you, by the way, everybody. You're going to save a fortune, and this is also so good for overall health care. And Oz, you've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to take a very quick break. We'll come back. I'll let you hear from Dr. Oz as he explains how this works, and this is going to save billions of dollars for Americans. The website, TrumpRx.gov, is the president announcing this at the White House. Much more coming up on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/LEVIN. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to make the switch to Pure Talk.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. If you just joined us, the president live at the White House talking about TrumpRx.gov. The president also saying it's very clear that this is going to save Americans billions of dollars. And he has said that Dr. Oz is going to explain how it works for you. Here is more of what Dr. Oz had to say as the president said he did an amazing job helping set this all up.
Thank you, sir. So you demanded, President demanded, that we have most favored nation drug pricing, which he explained beautifully. Today, you can now get access to these discounted, steeply discounted prices. All the hard work the president and the administration have done now is yours, but you have to go check TrumpRx.gov. So if you have access, please log on right now. It's free. You get to look at all the prices, and you should not be buying drugs anymore going forward without at least checking to see if those medications are available at these discounted prices on TrumpRx.gov. That stated, Mr. President, many people don't appreciate this, but one of the most special things you've been able to do, besides negotiating these kinds of deals, is bringing wonderful people around you who can actually fulfill the dream of making drugs accessible so Americans no longer suffer that affordability issue. 1 in 3 Americans are turned away from the drugstore. They can't afford the drugs. No more. Our most vulnerable are protected. To do that, you need brilliant software engineers. And Ed Korstein led a wonderful group that you hired. Folks, again, would never normally have come into government to work to make this possible. And Joe, just a superstar, and he's going to take us through the website.
Well, thanks, Dr. Oz. Mr. President, I've launched some big websites, and this is one I think you're going to be very proud of. So you mentioned Gonal-F. I think this is an interesting drug that we can check and see how do you find a drug on the site. So we'll pull up the website here. This is TrumpRx.gov. And I'm going to start at the search bar where I can search by the drug name. So I type in Gonal-F, and I see it auto-completes. When I click on this, I have a beautiful page that shows the drug product. And right at the top, I see this is 83% off the original price. Now, how do I get this discount? I take this coupon and I bring it to the pharmacy. I can print it out. I can add it to my wallet on my phone, whether it's an Apple or an Android. I show it to the pharmacist and I get the coupon credit right at the register. Now, this is an intelligent site. We know that there's other drugs that are commonly prescribed along with this. So we surface them here and they work with the same coupon. Okay, next, what pharmacies can you go to get this drug? It's a smart site. We pull up exactly where you can go to get this. Now, Gonal-F is a specialty drug, so you get it through the mail. I can call any one of these pharmacies and they deliver it straight to my home. It's that simple.
Mr. President, 1 in 3 families is having trouble having a baby. We're going to have a lot of Trump babies with these costs. Folks cannot afford these medications. It's going to change their lives. Now, this is the tip of the iceberg because Joe did a lot more with Ed and the rest of the National Design Studio. How many more medications do you have?
Well, the website launches with over 40 medications, ones that are the popular medications and ones that were previously very expensive. These are things like asthma inhalers, the GLP-1s. And on TrumpRx, you can actually find things like the weight loss shots and also new form factors like the weight loss pill. Let's click on this and see the discount for the pill. 89% off the original price. As you mentioned, Americans for the first time are getting the lowest cost price drugs like the rest of the world is. And we're not done. We're adding more and more drugs week over week. So going forward, it's an invitation to the nation to check TrumpRx.gov anytime you get a prescription.
Mr. President, we're breaking news. This weight loss shot that you've talked about a lot, this is a weight loss pill. And with these pills, which are actually even less expensive than the shots, we project that America will lose about 100 million pounds this year, which is going to make not only folks a lot healthier, but a lot easier to manage when they do get ill. But I'm particularly drawn, as I know you are, to the plight of folks, young couples trying to have children. And that first medication, one of the first ones we did most favored nation drug pricing on, has helped an immense number of folks. But the first person to use TrumpRx.gov to buy Gonal-F is here. And I wanted to introduce her to you, if you don't mind. Catherine's with us. Oh, perfect. Secretary Kennedy's going to escort her.
Good evening. I'm incredibly honored to be here tonight. I'm a military spouse, and my husband and I have been navigating infertility and IVF for 5 years, a journey that has included profound loss. Through that experience, we have come to understand how critical access to affordable fertility medication truly is. Medications like Gonal-F and access to them have been essential to our treatment and to our hope of success. IVF demands extraordinary physical and emotional strength. But for so many families, the financial burden can be just as heavy and at times overwhelming. The President's leadership on price transparency and on reducing the costs of medications, some of which are essential in my fertility treatments, has a real and immediate impact. Families like ours, it can mean the difference between being able to continue treatment or having no choice but to stop.
Let me just tell you, I got 3 boys, all from IVF. The financial burden is unbelievable. I can't tell you how big I'm grinning right now knowing that others who had to stop IVF because they couldn't afford the drugs will now maybe get to be able to start again. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. We'll have a lot more on this coming up.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day, because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the most popular conservative author in America. Call in to the Mark Levin Show now at 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. On Tuesday, I wrote an op-ed, and I have not written op-eds in a long time. That tells you how much I wanted to get in on this issue. And I submitted it, and thank goodness at foxnews.com, they decided to publish it. If you want to go there, you can go to foxnews.com. And the title of it is, Reagan Would Tell Americans to Watch This Netflix Merger Hearing Closely, and here's why. They had this congressional hearing on Tuesday, and it was weighing in on the Netflix Warner Brothers Discovery deal. Now, what's interesting is President Donald Trump has now said he wants to stay out of this. And I think that's very interesting because he probably is looking at this merger a little bit differently. Early on, he talked about it on the red carpet at Melania's, at the premiere of her movie at the Kennedy Center this past week. But now he's saying he's going to basically stay out of it. And I want you as an American to understand, I think, why this is such a very important moment. Now, I'm going to read for you part of what I wrote, and then I'll do some commentary in here as well. But it said, on Tuesday in Washington, Congress was holding a high-stakes hearing that goes well beyond Hollywood. It's about American jobs, who controls our media, and U.S. national security. If Ronald Reagan were alive today, he would urge every American to watch this hearing closely. Reagan understood that culture, storytelling, and the media are powerful weapons in the battle of ideas, and that foreign adversaries use them to weaken free societies from within. Now, this has actually, funny enough, been an obsession of the left, right? Russian collusion and Russian interference in our elections and foreign interference in China. We know that China targets our elections. We know they target American minds. We know they target our algorithms. We know this from TikTok, for example, and the forcing of the sale of TikTok to American entities. Why? Because this is exactly what they do. Lawmakers are weighing whether U.S. companies like Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery will be allowed to compete and grow, or whether government action will weaken them at a moment when foreign powers are aggressively using media and culture to influence the world. Now, where did they learn this is a question that you should be asking. And it's the reason why I wrote this op-ed. And again, you can find it at foxnews.com. Put in Ben Ferguson, and it'll pop up for you. But they learned this, I believe, actually from Ronald Reagan. They understood that Reagan understood the power of Hollywood. In fact, you remember what made Ronald Reagan significant before he ran for president was him standing up to communists and fighting to get rid of the communists that were in and had infiltrated Hollywood. He was an actor. He was president of Screen Actors Guild. Like, this was something he understood because he understood that, hey, if you let the communists come in and take over Hollywood, they're going to influence this country in a major way, and he didn't like that. He also understood the power of Hollywood to influence the rest of the world. When you're exporting your movies and your films and your TV shows, it can show the world what freedom looks like, what America looks like, what a democracy looks like. That is why this moment is so important. Now, lawmakers may be looking at this from, all right, look, should U.S. companies like Netflix and Warner Brothers be allowed to compete and grow? All right. But what it really is at stake here, and why this matters, I think, to every one of you listening, is because media is no longer just entertainment. Media shapes public opinion. We know this. Look at the liberal media and the mainstream media that's gone woke and has totally changed America. We know that it shapes public opinion, exports American values when we do it right, and serves as a counterweight to authoritarian propaganda around the world. When U.S. companies are weakened, foreign governments, especially China, does one thing every single time. They fill the void. China is number one with this right now. Back to the article. Decisions made Tuesday on Capitol Hill will help determine whether American storytelling remains independent and secure, or whether foreign influence gains even more ground inside one of America's most powerful strategic assets. At the center of the debate is the proposed merger between Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery. This should not be treated as just another corporate deal. It directly affects American jobs, American movie making, and America's ability to compete in a global information war. For more than a century, American films and television have carried our values around the world: freedom, creativity, and open expression. The cultural influences have been one of America's greatest strategic advantages, and today it is under real threat. The entertainment industry supports hundreds of thousands of good-paying American jobs: writers, actors, camera crews, editors, visual effects artists, set builders, marketers, and engineers. By the way, what I'm doing right now employs countless people that do exactly what I just described. These are, by the way, really good middle-class paying jobs. They're spread all over the country and growing in places like Georgia, New Mexico, Texas, New Jersey, and obviously California. We want jobs to stay in America, and this is not theoretical. Netflix is a great example of this. They recently committed $1 billion, and I'm sure there's going to be cost overruns, to build a new production studio at the former Fort Monmouth Army Base in New Jersey. It's a project expected to create more than 5,000 high-paying American jobs. The investment transforms a former military base into an engine of American production, innovation, and employment. And it only happens when companies have the scale and the stability to invest for the long term. Streaming, however, is capital intensive. We know that. And when companies are weakened or fragmented, production, what happens? It slows. Opportunities then shrink. Then layoffs usually follow. Scale brings stability. Stability protects and creates American jobs. A combined Netflix Warner Brothers Discovery would create a stronger, more resilient American company, able to invest consistently in, listen to this word, U.S. production. That means more projects are made in America and more investments like Fort Monmouth, not fewer. Hollywood, however, is more than an industry. It is, as Ronald Reagan understood, a strategic national asset. American movies and television reach more people globally than any government program or diplomatic initiative. That is a fact. American movies and television shape how the world views the United States and serves as a powerful counterweight to authoritarian propaganda, especially coming from the Middle East and coming from, you guessed it, Russia and China. China, by the way, understands this, I write in the article, which is why it tightly controls media at home and heavily invests in state-backed platforms abroad. And we've already seen how the censorship works. I'll give you a great example of a movie many of you probably have seen. It's one of my favorites. Top Gun Maverick. That film was a massive global success, not just in America, but all over the world. And guess what happened? China refused to allow it to be shown in its theaters. You want to know why? Because of a small patch on Tom Cruise's leather flight jacket depicting the flag of Taiwan. It wasn't violence. It was not offensive content. It was a jacket patch that 99% of the people would have never noticed if they wouldn't have made such a big deal out of it and banned the movie from China. That single symbol was enough for the Chinese Communist Party for Beijing to block the film entirely. And the message was unmistakable. Access to China's markets required what? American companies to bow down. It required political compliance, and it required self-censorship. So back to Reagan. Ronald Reagan understood this fight long before streaming even existed. He knew movies, he knew television, and storytelling were powerful tools in the battle of ideas, and that foreign or communist influence over American media posed a real threat. As Reagan warned, quote, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And protecting American cultural leadership became a cornerstone of his presidency. And that lesson matters now more than ever. There are also serious concerns about foreign money. And every one of you listening to me right now, pay attention to this, because this is the part that really inspired me to write this op-ed. Foreign money entering the American media ecosystem should terrify all of you. I believe it's a national security risk that also comes with it. Some competing proposals involving legacy studios would shrink the field from 5 major studios to 4, concentrating more power in fewer hands and driving up costs for families who just want to watch a movie at home. That kind of consolidation reduces competition. It limits choice and historically leads to what? Layoffs, not innovation. Even more troubling, some proposed takeovers are reportedly backed by $24 billion from foreign governments, including Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Qatar. Now, look, I am usually a guy that is not in favor of regulations, okay? I want to be clear. I wrote in the article, I'm hardly a fan of excessive regulations, but we have laws in the books for a reason, to protect the American marketplace and the American people from foreign manipulation. By the way, that's something Democrats were obsessed with, so they should understand me on this one, right? Let's be clear. $24 billion from Middle East is not philanthropy. Foreign governments do not invest billions in American media for fun. They do it to gain leverage. They do it to gain influence narratives and shape what people see and hear. It is a direct national security concern. In today's world, influence is power more than ever because the smartphone that's in your hand right now. And when American content is weakened, something else fills the void. And increasingly, that content is shaped or approved by authoritarian governments just like China. That is not just an economic issue. It's a national security issue. So to be clear, I've openly been critical of Netflix in the past for much of their programming, particularly when it comes to some of its woke and radical programming decisions that deal with LGBTQ and transgender obsession. All right, I want to be clear. I have not hesitated to call those out publicly, and I'm not going to stop doing it. I also, by the way, don't own stock in Netflix or Warner Brothers or Discovery or any of the companies that I discussed there. My position is very clear. It's not about defending a corporation. It's about defending American workers, American creativity, and America's strategic interests at a moment when cultural influence and national security are inseparable. This Netflix Warner Bros. Discovery merger does not eliminate competition. The streaming market remains crowded and fiercely competitive. The deal allows an American company to compete at scale against big tech and state-backed foreign players. That's why I'm in favor of it. Ronald Reagan knew cultural influence was national power, and that truth has not changed. In fact, it's even more of a point now than it was when Reagan said it back in the 80s. In a global competition where China and other foreign powers are obsessed with using culture as leverage, America, I say, cannot afford to weaken one of its most powerful tools. And that's exactly why I say this merger is important. It strengthens American jobs and our power around the world. I want to take a moment to just read that to you because I think it's that important. I want to get your phone calls. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. By the way, if you want to read that op-ed, I'll post a new link to it right now on X, and you can share it there, or you can grab it at foxnews.com. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day, because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to Big Wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. I want to put a story on your radar screen, and it's one that it should be the number one story that was talked about in the news today. It was not. And the fact that investigators found thousands of vials of blood and tissue connected to the Chinese Communist Party, genetically engineered mice designed to carry COVID. Test shows that these vials that were found in America had COVID, hepatitis, and malaria. And investigators linked the lab to the Chinese Communist Party. Here's how Fox News explained it.
New at 2, we're half past the hour, a possible biological lab inside a Las Vegas home, now under investigation. A federal investigation. Agents seizing vials of unknown liquids and probing a potential link to a Chinese national accused of running a similar lab in California that held deadly pathogens. Our senior national correspondent William Lajeunesse is reporting live on this out of Los Angeles for us. Hello, William.
Well, Sandra, two amazing things about this story. One, the man who owns that Vegas lab, he's a Chinese scientist linked to the CCP, is and has been in jail the last 3 years. Secondly, the lab is not an FDA licensed facility, but it's in a house in Vegas, raided Saturday morning by the FBI, SWAT pulling out boxes of what police believe are hazardous biological agents and pathogens normally found in a secure university or industrial lab with airlocks designed to prevent an outbreak.
Almost immediately, investigators observed multiple refrigerators, a freezer, and other laboratory-type equipment, along with numerous bottles and jugs containing unknown liquid substances.
So the Vegas lab, according to police, belongs to 62-year-old Zhu Baiju, a Chinese national, and a fugitive who also goes by the alias David He. He was arrested in 2023 for manufacturing unlicensed medical devices and lying about unapproved HIV and pregnancy test kits that he was selling. He also operated this illicit biolab in an abandoned warehouse in Reedley, California, where investigators found thousands of vials of blood and tissue, 1,000 genetically engineered mice designed to carry the COVID virus, and CDC tests did show the vials contained HIV, COVID, hepatitis, herpes, and malaria. Police arrested Zhu, and he's been in jail ever since. Congressional investigators linked the lab to the Chinese Communist Party, a tie that also suggests the same people are behind the Vegas lab.
What do we think these people were doing with those substances in the house? And I'll tell you, the truth is we don't know yet.
Let me just say one thing about this story real quick. How is this not a massive concern of every major news network? You have the Chinese Communist Party has multiple locations that we found, meaning there's multiple locations that we haven't found. I'm sure of that, right? That have biological weapons in essence. Why would they need those in America for any other reason? I just want to know. I'm genuinely curious. How is this not a much bigger issue? How are there not more people? How are there not more people out there? More asking questions besides Fox News Channel. This is a national security issue of the highest level. 1-877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. Follow me during the break. Ben Ferguson Podcast. You can listen to that every day as well. Grab it wherever you get your podcasts. More after this.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you, and it is nice to have you with us. It is official. The White House has announced and launched the site TrumpRx.gov. That's right. It is truly incredible to see what the president has now put together in a historic launch to lower drug prices for American patients. President Trump announcing the launch of TrumpRx.gov through the website. Patients will be able to access large discounts on many of the most popular and the highest priced medications in the country, paying prices in line with the lowest paid by other developed nations, known as the most favored nation price, something America could have done decades ago, but we didn't do it. Why? Because of corruption in Washington. The drug manufacturers and lobbyists making sure that you paid more than anyone else in the world on many of the medications we're talking about right now. Now, today's launch featured drugs made by the first 5 manufacturers to reach MFN pricing deals with the Trump administration. We're talking about big companies like AstraZeneca, Eli Lilly, Nova, Nordisk, and Pfizer. Additional drugs from other companies that have signed the MFN pricing deals will be made available through TrumpRx.gov, they say, in the coming weeks and months. Now, TrumpRx.gov provides patients, the White House said, with access to a world-class experience for accessing deep discounts on medicines that you need. Depending on the manufacturer of a given drug, patients with valid prescriptions will be able to access savings through their user-friendly coupons that can be printed or downloaded onto your phone or through channels set up by the manufacturer and then integrated into TrumpRx.gov. Why is the president doing all of this? It's actually for a very simple reason. The president of the United States of America says we have to put Americans first and our patients first. Here's more. The president of the United States of America, in his own words, on this and how excited he is about the future for every American.
We're here this evening to celebrate the launch of one of the most transformative healthcare initiatives of all time. There's never been anything like it. Starting tonight, dozens of the most commonly used prescription drugs will be available at dramatic discounts for all consumers throughout a new website. It's called TrumpRx.gov. That's TrumpRx.gov. For years, politicians from both parties have promised to bring down prescription drug prices and make healthcare more affordable, but they all failed. It was all words as usual. They failed, and they failed badly. They tried doing this, some of them, most of them didn't even try, because they never really had a shot at it. But I'm actually getting it done, and it is done, actually. This launch represents the largest reduction in prescription drug prices in history by many, many times, and it's not even close. You're going to see numbers that you're not going to believe.
Purchasing directly through TrumpRx.gov you'll be able to see, the White House says, massive price reductions on 40 of the most popular and expensive branded medications in the nation. Select examples include historic price reductions, the White House said, for Americans on the 2 drugs with the highest annual expenditures in the United States, which help adults struggling with diabetes, heart disease. These are drugs like Ozempic, and they also help with obesity, getting that under control, and other conditions. The monthly price of Ozempic and injectables like that will fall from more than $1,000 to an average price of as low as $199, depending on dosage strength. The monthly price of other drugs used for weight loss, for example, and the new pill will fall from $1,349 Wegovy to as low as $149, depending on the dosage and strength. The monthly price of Zepbound will fall from $1,088 to an average price of $346 and as low as $299, depending on the dosage and strength as well. Massive savings on some of the most commonly used fertility medications in the country will also put families first, something the president promised, and help American families grow. Many patients struggling with infertility pay for their medications out of pocket. And let me tell you, having 3 children through IVF, in vitro fertilization, the amount of financial stress going through that process is unbelievable. Tens of thousands of dollars we spent on the drugs alone because it was all out of pocket. Well, that's exactly why the president made this one of the top priorities. He now says that many families will stand to save more than $2,000 per cycle of fertility drugs on average. This is incredible. Gonal-F, one of the most commonly used fertility drugs, will see its price reduced to as low as $168 per pen, depending on dosage strength. The price for another commonly used fertility medication will drop all the way down to $22.50. And there are many other drugs that you have to use in infertility treatments. The president's saying that's a priority. Discounts on numerous other high-cost drugs, including inhalers to treat chronic conditions that deal with COPD, will be discounted all the way down to $51 from $500. There's asthma inhalers to treat symptoms and attacks. The price will drop from $504 down to $201. That's real money. These are just some of the examples that the president has made a real priority. And then insulin, for example, will be available as low as $25 a month. Yeah, Duavi, a medication used to treat hot flashes and osteoporosis, will see its price cut from $202 all the way down to just $30. And the president made it clear he's delivering lower costs on the most popular drugs. President Trump delivering on that promise to ensure American patients no longer pay high prices to subsidize low prices in the rest of the world, something the political establishment did not believe was even possible. On May the 12th, 2025, President Trump did sign that executive order titled Delivering Most Favored Nation Prescription Drug Pricing to American Patients, directing the administration to take numerous actions to bring American drug prices in line with those paid by similar nations. Fast forward to July 31st of last year. President Trump sent letters to leading pharmaceutical manufacturers outlining the steps they must take to bring down the prices of prescription drugs in the United States to match the lowest price offered in other developed nations. And then since September of this year, let me rephrase that. Since September of last year, President Trump announced 16 deals with major pharmaceutical manufacturers to bring prices in line with those paid in other developed nations, which will provide substantial price relief on numerous products taken by millions of Americans each and every day. And then on December 1 of 2025, the Office of the United States Trade Representative, the Department of Commerce, and the Department of Health and Human Services announced an agreement with the United Kingdom that will increase the net price of new prescription drugs by 25% in the UK, helping ensure that they pay their fair share for innovative medicines that they've been taking advantage of, and America has been, holding the bill. And then on January the 15th of this year, President Trump called on Congress to enact the Great Healthcare Plan, which he said would lower drug prices by codifying the savings from his most favored nation pricing initiatives, lowering insurance premiums that have skyrocketed under Obamacare, hold insurance companies accountable, and most importantly, maximize, as he describes it, price transparency for all Americans. Another major win for so many Americans that voted for Donald Trump. And as he said, starting tonight, dozens of the most commonly used prescription drugs will be available at the site that he has put together. He is excited about it, TrumpRx.gov. Another campaign promise that's become a reality by the President of the United States of America. I want to get your phone calls in here and get your reaction to all of this. The number 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. So nice to have you with us. If you can't get through on the phones, you can always send me an X tweet. It's so funny how I still call it Twitter or tweet. What do you call it, Mr. Producer? Oh, you call it a post. Okay. All right. That's very fancy, very bougie of you. A post. If you'd like to send me a post on X, at Ben Ferguson Show. Also, if you're on Instagram, it's a little different there, Ben Ferguson Podcast. And make sure you grab my podcast. I do it every day. I'd love to keep up with you there. You can download the Ben Ferguson Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get some of your phone calls. We've talked about it a lot tonight. 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Let me go to Cheryl. Welcome. You are on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hello.
Hello, Ben Ferguson. It's such an honor to speak to you, and I'm a longtime Levinite. So much to respond to. Well, first, one of the things about what you just said with all the health care is that because of all the illegal aliens, I'm not going to call them like everybody else undocumented immigrants. They are illegal aliens. That was what our founding fathers called them because they were from foreign lands and they were not here by legal processes and means. But because all of them were on Medicaid and getting free health care here in California and other places, and that's why Obamacare was such a disaster. So, kudos to President Trump for doing this to make, health care more affordable, but specifically drug prices. So I think that's amazing. I too had my son, who's now 25, through IVF, and it was just like outrageously expensive. And so I'm just so happy for like all the people now who can access it. But what I wanted to say is that in terms of calling, the SAVE Act Jim Crow, first of all, no one has to carry around their birth certificate. It's when you first register to vote. And that's even here in Orange County, California. You have to show proof of citizenship. So you do have to present like your birth certificate or whatever. And the same thing if you go on Social Security or on Medicare or anything. It's not like, you're going to carry around your birth certificate wherever you go. No one's having to pay a poll tax. No one's having to take a literacy test. Everybody has a driver's license or some form of ID. You can't even go into a liquor store to get beer, or whatever you drink on the Super Bowl without showing, proper ID.
And I go back to just the last presidential election. The overwhelming majority of states that were won, by Kamala Harris were states that did not have voter ID laws. That's why Democrats don't want these laws. It allows for fraud. It allows for abuse. I'll put it to another example. California is going to end up being the fraud capital of the world, all right? Not just of America, the world. Listen to this story from Fox about what one man was able to defraud the American people of in the story, because again, this is a place where like, no, we don't want you to have an ID. We love illegal immigrants. Come on in. This is corruption. It's corruption. By the way, the man literally stole from the money that was meant to feed the homeless.
After recent warnings about rampant fraud in California, federal agents moving in today, busting a man accused of stealing tens of millions of dollars meant for the homeless and spending that cash on a lavish lifestyle. Correspondent Matt Finn is live in Los Angeles for you. And, folks were warned about this, and lo and behold, here it is.
Yeah, this is it behind me, John. The feds say this man was contracted with the city and county of Los Angeles to house and feed up to 600 homeless people, but instead he was misusing tens of millions of dollars to live a luxurious life. Exclusive Fox video shows the Fed's early morning bust here at the LA mansion. 42-year-old Alexander Suker was arrested. Suker's $125,000 Land Rover was also seized by law enforcement. The Fed say Suker defrauded the city and county of LA out of $23 million in taxpayer dollars for not only his mansion and car, but a second home in Greece, luxury vacations, designer clothes, and private schools.
He was living the high life while the people suffering, homeless on the streets with no shelter, no food, they're living out in the streets. People are literally dying. And this guy is out vacationing, buying homes, buying Range Rovers, and going shopping.
Prosecutors say Suker was supposed to provide 3 nutritional meals a day to the homeless, but during one inspection, Suker only had canned beans and ramen noodles on hand. The feds say Suker lied about various aspects of abundant blessings, including fake vendors, facilities, and the homeless actually getting meals. The U.S. Attorney's Office in L.A. says they are actively investigating at least 12 other similar fraud cases here in California. First Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley says there's a tremendous amount of fraud in this state and that today's bust of one man who misused $23 million alone may show how little oversight there is.
By the way, this is California. This goes back to the simple point that I said earlier. Democrats don't want oversight in the elections, so they can cheat the same way that they can cheat these systems with no oversight in California. And the fraud, by the way, it's the insane levels of fraud. 18% we're being told of home health care billing nationwide is coming from one county. Do you want to know where that county is? I'm going to say it again. 18% right now, this was uncovered this week, of home health care billing nationwide is coming from one county, and guess where it is? California. And the fraud that's being exposed there is great, but people better go to jail. That's what this is really all about. 18% of the whole country's home health care billing is coming out of LA County.
One doctor billed the government $120 million in a single year, claiming to oversee 1,900 patients. With almost 2,000 hospice agencies, LA County has more than 36 states combined and 30 times more than either Florida or New York.
18% of the whole country's home health care billing is coming out of Los Angeles County. How is that possible?
And take a look at this map, a cluster of 287 hospice providers in a 2-mile radius, some in strip malls, unmarked buildings, even a wrecking yard and vacant lot.
It's all a lie. It's all fraud. It's all your tax dollars being taken from you. This is the Democratic Party, and they want to keep doing it. Why? Because they get kickbacks for their elections. Make no mistake about it. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
This is the home of America's founding. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. It's good to be with you. And if you want to send me a note, you can on X at Ben Ferguson Show there. Also, if you're on Instagram, follow me. It's a little different, at Ben Ferguson Podcast. And don't forget, you can download my podcast and listen every day, the Ben Ferguson Podcast, for free, wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get to some of your phone calls. 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Let me go to Elizabeth in Texas. Welcome. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hi.
Hey, good evening. Well, I wanted to get back to the election integrity. I'm a U.S. citizen now, came here legally from Britain about 40 years ago, and I am retired social worker. I was working in a nursing home back in the 2020 elections, and it got to, I asked, what happens with all these residents voting? So the activity director said, oh, I take care of that. So the administrator said, so you've got all the forms? She said, well, they haven't arrived, but yeah, I've got them all. I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. So I said, okay, what do you do about all those people with dementia and the Alzheimer's and the nonverbals? I mean, do you talk to their families? What happens to those people? So she said, oh, no, I just fill them out. So what do you mean you fill them out? How can you fill them out? What? I was like really speechless. And then everyone was like staring at me, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm on my own here. So I waited till after the meeting and went to the administrator's office and said, look, I'm really unhappy. I think coming from another country myself and doing things legally and want this integrity to be so correct for voting, I'm so proud to be able to vote myself. So hearing that somebody signs off on all these people with diagnoses of Alzheimer's, dementias, mental health, nonverbals, I said, how can she do that? It's just what we do.
Well, I mean, look, this is the reason why I go back to just the facts on the majority of states that Kamala Harris won the last presidential election do not have voter ID laws. I mean, the level of, I think, illegal voting or cramming ballots into boxes or mail-in votes that were mailed out during COVID, I have no doubt it had enough impact that it could easily have impacted the last election. That's just the way, I mean, if we're being honest, right? Like, let's just be honest about it. And if the majority of Americans overwhelmingly, which is the case, okay, like we know from the numbers, we've talked about what CNN's own polling shows. Their own polling. Mass amount of Americans are demanding the Senate leader, John Thune, listen to President Trump and Nicki Minaj enforce voter ID through the floor. Like, let me just play this to you from Fox. This is Brett Baer the other night talking about this and then playing the CNN data. Here it is.
Voter ID. The Senate saying they may press forward and try to push this act forward that's passed the House. Take a listen to the polling on voter ID.
Normally, you might expect, hey, there'd be a big divide by party with Republicans really for it and Democrats really against it. But not really here. I mean, just take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. You got 95% of Republicans, pretty much all of them, but even 71% of Democrats favor photo ID to vote. It's not really all that controversial. The American people are with Nicki Minaj, whether they are Republican or even if they are Democrats.
He mentions Nicki Minaj because she put out on X, what sensible, forward-thinking, cutting-edge leading nation is having a debate on whether or not there should be voter ID, like, question mark. They're actually fighting not to have people present ID while voting for your leaders. Do you get it? Do you get it now? Is this a winner for Republicans? Can they turn this into a winner?
As is typically the case, Nicki Minaj has got it right on the head.
She's leading on the political front.
On the head. Voter ID, I've been working on this thing for longer than I can
Why do you
remember.
think I asked you?
It is a no-brainer. It's always been a no-brainer. It doesn't matter how you break down the constituencies. The American people have always been in favor of it.
You have to use an ID to get a beer. You have to get on a plane. You have to...
We built a society around it, as it turns out, and so it would only make sense if you had to vote with one, too. I think they ought to make these people vote on this as many times as they can, because there is no defense for not wanting voter ID at the polls. But it continues to be an issue over and over again. They ought to make this a dividing line. I don't know if it's in the context of this DHS bill. They got enough stuff to try to figure out with ICE and everything else in a short time period. But it really needs to be a central focus.
And they could get some Democrats, Kevin.
They certainly could get some Democrats. I point to my adopted home state of South Carolina that passed a bipartisan bill involving voter ID, extending early votes, some drop locations as well. Got the Congressional Black Caucus in Columbia, South Carolina on board. That can be a model. Democrats don't need to uniformly oppose this just to stand in opposition to the president.
But it's not about just being in opposition to the president. What's it really about? It's about altering and changing an election. The numbers that CNN put out: black voters 76% want it, white voters 85% want it, Latino voters 82% want it. Democrats on the Hill still say no so they can steal elections. Prove me wrong. There's no one, there's no sane argument, and that's why he's like, it's Jim Crow 2.0, right? That's the Democrats' line on this one, because they can't defend what's happening. Elizabeth, God bless you. I appreciate the phone call. 877-381-3811. Let me go to Michael in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You're on the mark of... Oh, we lost Michael. All right, let me go to JT in Georgia on line 4. Welcome. You are on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you tonight. Hi.
Hi, Ben. I'd just like to briefly summarize our situation in Georgia in 2020. I was a Republican official observing the hand recount and the computer recounts in our county. We have 159 counties. And briefly, the problem was absolute corruption in the mail-in ballots. In 2016, this county, with a 67% turnout in mail-in ballots, the mail-in ballots were 1,414 for Trump versus 1,400 for Hillary Clinton. But then in 2020, it jumps 5 times the total. We get 59-29 for Biden, 33-12 for Trump. If there was an effort, which there was, to try to flip this county, Trump won over Clinton by 2,600 votes in 2016. If you want to flip it from red to blue, well, you need 2,600 fraudulent votes. Well, you subtract 59-29 from 33-12 in the mail-in ballots, you get 26-17. It wasn't just the mail-in ballots. It was that for 5 days, the ballots are separated in blocks, groups. 5 days, ballots came into the election office in this county with 46,000 voters. Of 1, 2, 3 votes for Trump out of a batch of about 100. So you had 92 to 95, 98 for Biden. Just statistically impossible. Nobody would investigate in this county or anywhere in the state a simple group of 500 ballots to find out if these people were actually legitimate voters, if we wanted to just take a percentage of what was going on in the county. So when Trump loses the entire state because of overnight, what I believe, total shenanigans, and certainly the mail-in ballot situation, and then Mark Zuckerberg and his CTCL money, the Center for Tech of Civic Life.
Well, let me just pause you there and simplify this for everybody listening. All right. If you're a liberal or a Republican, the conversation that we're having right now is the conversation that I argue is the proof of why you just show your stupid ID, so that we don't have to have this conversation. Transparency in our elections is the most important thing to protect those elections, and not just to protect them, but also so people actually show up to vote. One of the reasons why many people don't vote is because they believe that their vote doesn't really even matter. Like, they don't believe that it really even counts. They believe that the system is so fraudulent that they're like, why am I going to waste my time to go down there and vote? And after you see how many Americans are engaged on this issue in such a we want to show our ID way, the only thing that Congress should do, I'm not sure there's anything else right now that's a real national issue that you could get this type of bipartisanship on. I'm not sure if you polled as a sky blue, you could get everybody to agree on that. I really, and I mean this when I say it, like, if you're against this, the only reason why that logically makes sense, the only reason, is because you want to cheat in an election. 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for the great one. I want to get back to your phone calls. 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Let's get some of your phone calls in here. Corey, thanks for waiting. You're on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. Hello.
Ben, I'd like to get your idea on something real quick. I believe in the SAVE Act 100,000%. I think everybody should show an ID. My question to you, and I want your thoughts on this, what about the sanctuary states that are issuing driver's license and CDLs to illegal aliens with no name and no address on them? That's a form of ID.
Yeah, well, but the thing is, if you have no name on there, then you wouldn't be able to match that up. I get what you're saying. They'll try to. I think it's pretty clear what you're saying. They'll try to what? They'll try to figure out a way to cheat. And I can't disagree with you on that one. I think what you're going to witness is you're going to have some of those issues come up. I think if your name's not on there, and remember, they're trying to make sure that you're an American citizen to be able to register to vote. And so that's part of this, right? So there's kind of a two-pronged protection here that we're going for.
Okay.
I think both of those are covered, is maybe a better way of putting it, the way that they have written this act so far. So I understand your point. I think this is covered in that, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel a little better. I was wondering about that. Okay. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Corey, good to talk to you. Trey, welcome. You are on the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you. How are you?
Doing well, and thank you for taking my call. I'm calling you as a lifelong Republican. I started voting back in 1980 for Ronald Reagan, and I voted for Donald Trump in 2016, 2020, and 24. But I'm also a disabled person. I had a near-fatal car crash almost 30 years ago. And I live here in Texas, and by state election law, I'm entitled to be able to vote by mail because of my disability.
And that would not be changed or affected, just so you know.
Well, let me see. Well, you mentioned illnesses in your first hour, not the word disability. And,
well, let me be clear. I was quoting Donald Trump and what Donald Trump said in his exact words that he put out. And I said, here's what the president said about it on True Social. So I'm it's not my words, and I'll go back to it. All right. This is Donald Trump's exact words on True Social. American elections are rigged, stolen, and a laughingstock all over the world. We are either going to fix them or we won't have a country any longer. I'm asking all Republicans to fight for the following. Number one, the Save America Act. All voters must show voter ID identification. Number two, all voters must show proof of United States citizenship to register for voting. Number three, no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. So disability is his word after the word illness.
Well, that makes me feel a whole lot better then. I was just very
You're
concerned
covered.
I've heard all this confusion. Well, that's good because I live here in Texas and I have been voting by mail, absentee, for the last 30 years because I am disabled.
Yeah, you're covered. You are covered.
Okay.
You do not need to worry.
Okay, well, what about just voting on election day only? Or is that
Well, but that wouldn't be a problem for you because you would be voting mail-in because you are disabled.
But there are millions of people who are disabled.
And that's okay. But when you have them dropping ballots to every registered voter, even though some of them are dead, we saw that in Fulton County, for example, it's a problem. And so they're trying to stop that from happening again.
Well, I agree with the president on that. I was just concerned about the disability issue because anytime a law changes, it concerns me, sir.
Yeah, as it should. But you're covered. He has explicitly said in this law that you are covered.
Well, thank you very much for making that clear, and you have a wonderful and blessed day.
You as well. Thank you, sir. 877-381-3811. Brittany in Kansas City, Missouri. You're on the Mark Levin Show with Ben Ferguson. How are you?
Oh, my God, I'm so good. How are you?
Doing well. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing so great. I just really appreciate how much you support our law enforcement. And they're just, like, keeping our streets safe from 6-year-olds and pregnant women and everyone that I grew up in my community with. So I just want to tell you guys, thank you so much for supporting fascism and being stupid.
I'll take the bait. What is your definition of fascism? It's not a hard question. You use the word. What is your definition of fascism? Oh, wait, hold on. Did you hang up? Okay, yeah. You're one of the, what do we call those? Drive-by callers? Yeah. Yeah, drive-by callers. Yeah. You say something stupid, then you hang up because you can't back up the stupid thing that you said. That's why I say liberalism is a mental disease. You're the example of it right there. 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Wes, welcome. You are on the Mark Levin Show. Hopefully you're smarter than the last caller. If you just say hello, you're already there.
Oh, yeah. Hello.
There, you did it. Congratulations. If anyone says you had a bad day today, just tell them this story and be like, no, I've had a great day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have had a great day. I'm not going to lie to you, but I wanted to talk to you about the SAVE Act. Man, I cannot believe that there are people in this country that can't support voter ID laws. I mean, it's crazy. You walk into a gas station to buy beer, you have to show an ID. You know, I mean, there's
you get food stamps, you got to show an ID. If you get governing type of government aid, you have to show an ID. If you get Obamacare, you got to have an ID. Like the list of things that goes on and on. That's why 90% of Americans are basically in favor of it. Like, it's not hard. I hate the music. I'm sorry. I'm out of time. I really am. Don't forget, you can grab my podcast. I'd love to keep up with you there. I do the Ben Ferguson podcast each and every day, so grab the Ben Ferguson podcast. I'd love to keep up with you. Follow me on X, Ben Ferguson Show, on Instagram, Ben Ferguson Podcast. And as always, thank you to Mark Levin for letting me fill in for him. See you back here again real soon.